Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show I read a lot of comic books and I let you know what I thought about them. And we always start with the pick of the week. And this week's pick of the week, Ultimate Spider-Man #2 from Marvel Comics. This is written by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by Marco Checchetto, and this is just awesome. I am so beyond excited that we finally got a really cool, explosive, dynamic, entertaining, and engaging and compelling Spider-Man book from Marvel Comics. Now, I think that most of the Spider-Man books from Marvel have just been kind of aight over the last few years. But Hickman and Checchetto have revitalized this character, this brand, and has gotten a lot of people excited for it. Issue #1 sold out across the board. Issue #1 had a second printing. That has been selling out. The first printing of the first issue, cover A, is going for like $80 or something. So get your chance to get this book right now. A third print is on the way of issue #1, but do not miss out on issue #2. I was blown away by issue #1. I'm even more blown away by issue #2 because this direction for Peter Parker, for Spider-Man in this reality is really something different, truly unique, but at the same time so significantly Spider-Man to the core. I love this book. It's Jonathan Hickman, first of all, and when he was building up the Ultimate Invasion stuff and the release of his new Ultimate Universe, there wasn't a lot of hype behind it, but this is a great story. So in this reality, things have been manipulated by the maker and evil Reed Richards from the original Ultimate Universe. They've been manipulated so that these heroes never get their powers. There's no Ultimates or Avengers. There's no Fantastic Four. There's no X-Men. There's just a secret evil cabal running everything during the maker's absence. So Tony Stark thinks, hey, let's let heroes have a chance in this reality so that we're prepared for when the Maker returns. Okay, so Peter Parker in this reality was never bit by that spider when he was a teenager. So he's actually lived his life, he has a job, he's got 2 kids, he's married to Mary Jane, but there's something missing in his life. He feels like he's directionless. He feels like there's no purpose. And then at the end of the first issue, Tony Stark shows up and goes, if you feel like you've been missing something, it's because you were supposed to be bit by this radioactive spider. Peter bites the bullet, or should I say, the spider bites Peter. Peter decides to willingly allow himself to be bitten by this radioactive, genetically manipulated spider so he can become the Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe. So Peter gets his powers as a 30-something-year-old man, with a wife, with 2 kids, with a life that he feels is just missing a little something. That little something is Spider-Man. And seeing his reaction to these powers, his first meetup with the villain, and it doesn't necessarily go well. It is absolutely hilarious. Really cool, compelling stuff going on in here, including the world around Peter. Not just Mary Jane and the kids, though that's really awesome as well, but you got Wilson Fisk, who's running the Daily Bugle. You got J. Jonah Jameson and Uncle Ben, who are like quitting the Bugle to run a rival news corporation. There's a new Ultimate Green Goblin out there and other threats, but at the core of this, it is truly Spider-Man, and it soars because of that. So Ultimate Spider-Man #2, the pick of the week. Also from Jonathan Hickman this week, we got G.O.D.S issue #5. Kind of like I've been feeling about G.O.D.S. It's a solid issue, it's cool, but if these were characters that I actually knew or events that I actually felt connected to or cared about, it would have a bit more oomph. It would have a bit more scope and scale to it. This is a book that seems like it's very important, but at the same time, there's not much connection between the world that's being built around in and played with here and all this kind of stuff. But it's still a really good, solid comic, but it's just kind of hard for it to find its identity. What's separating this, or not what's separating this, but what is making this essentially a Marvel book? And it's not quite all clicking for me, but I do think it's well written. I think it's well paced. There's some great ideas in the book. I like the book, but it just doesn't feel as big as we're supposed to feel it is, if that makes sense. Then we got Edge of Spider-Verse #1. I know, another Edge of Spider-Verse. Why? because we keep buying them. They keep teasing the first appearances of new Spider-Man from the Spider-Verse, and we just eat it up, I guess, right? But so once again, the anthology series that's building up to something, not another Spider-Verse, but another Spider-Verse type crossover event or something like that. I don't know. There are 3 stories in here introducing us to Weapon 8, which is Peter Parker as part of the Weapon Plus program. That was really cool. I actually liked that story. The second story has Spider Bite. She is like a spider person who defends the internet, like shrinks down into the internet. That was an alright story. Then the backup story is involving Spider-Man 2099 and Madam Web, and it's actually leaning and building up into whatever the next Spider-Verse type event is going to be, even though the last Spider-Verse event was called End of the Spider-Verse. I guess that didn't stick, but Edge of the Spider-Verse #1, it was okay. Spider-Boy #4 continues to be a really fun, bouncy, vibrant comic. Spider-Boy was a character that I didn't give 2 F's about at all, but reading this solo book, it's just a nice, fun, classic-style Marvel comic. In this one, though, he does kind of have to have a little bit of friction with Peter Parker. He wants to be Peter Parker's sidekick, but Peter doesn't quite trust him, and then events are unfolding to cause that distrust to even deepen, and it drives the wedge between them. But it's a light book, doesn't take itself too seriously, but it does take itself seriously enough. Spider-Boy's been pleasantly surprising. Daredevil #6 here, what a fantastic issue. #1 because we got Aaron Kuder on the artwork. Really, really like his artwork, especially on Daredevil. It's a very simple, clean style, but man, does it work, and the coloring in this issue is absolutely amazing. So what's been going on in the pages of Daredevil is since he's been resurrected, or should I say returned from hell, at the end of the Chip Zdarsky run, there have been all of these demons plaguing Matt's life. They're kind of possessing people close to him, Ben Urich, Elektra, and others, and he's trying to confront this. And in this issue, he gets the revelation of how and why, and then starts making the steps to rectify that situation. Another really solid issue. Saladin Ahmed's doing a great job on the pages of Daredevil. They've got Incredible Hulk #9. This was one of the weakest issues of Incredible Hulk for me. I really liked the last issue, but I tell you what, this book, as cool as some of the ideas are that Philip Kennedy Johnson is playing with, and that horror vibe, this book really lives and breathes with Nick Klein. If Nick Klein is not on this book, it doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same horrific, truly horrific approach, and things that would look super gnarly and badass with Nick Klein illustrating it just look a little wonky, ridiculous, and too brightly lit, and just, it doesn't come across very horror-like. There's some interesting ideas, but when Nick Klein's not on this book, it's just not really working for me. Then we got Alien, Black, White, and Blood, issue #1, a new color-themed anthology for Alien. So this is going to be, each issue is going to have one story by Kelly and Lansing, and it's going to like run through each issue, and it's all right. And then there's backup stories. So the backup stories here, Stephanie Phillips, she does a pretty decent job with her story. The backup story by Ryan Cady, and who is the artist? It's one of the artists from, I think it's the artist from Paradiso, I believe. That's in the front, actually. Is it in the front? Let's, yep. Hey, we're just wasting time. It's, Pramonic, I think it's Dev Pramonic. Love the art in that last bit right there. The stories didn't really do too much for me. And if you notice, it's not just black, white, and red. It's black, white, red, and green because alien blood is green. And I actually think that's kind of clever. So some really cool artwork in there, some decent enough stories. Then we got Predator, The Last Hunt, issue #1, Ed Brisson. This is basically his 3rd volume of Predator. And with, just like the Alien book, they're not doing an ongoing series. They're doing it as a series of miniseries. Each one's a story arc. It's all part of the same thing. I haven't been reading Predator, but it did not hinder my enjoyment of this book. They caught me up on what's been going on with this character. They catch you up on what's going on in the world of Predator, and it was actually pretty interesting. So you got these 2 survivors of a Predator attack at some point in the previous issues. They're running around dressed up as Predators, trying to find the Predator home planet so they can just tear ass through it, and they come across some interesting situations. So I actually liked this issue of Predator, and it may actually encourage me to go back and check out the previous ones, because I only read that for like the first 2 issues or something. Then we got a facsimile of Amazing Spider-Man 253. They just did a reprint of the facsimile for 252, and what they're doing is they're re-releasing in facsimile form all of the Amazing Spider-Man issues from when Peter came back from Secret Wars with the alien symbiote costume. That is so freaking cool. I love this era of Spider-Man. This is when I first started reading Spider-Man. So it's going to be cool to revisit some of these. I also believe this is the first appearance of the Rose. And just goes to show you why I love the Rose so much is because when I first started reading Spider-Man books, like, he was like the big deal, but whatever. If you've never read this stuff, this is your chance. They're re-releasing all of Secret Wars, and now they're doing all the Amazing Spider-Mans that go right alongside of it. That's a great idea. Marvel, instead of just giving us random facsimiles all the time of just random issue number ones, why don't you give us the whole run? Like with Micronauts. I love that I got a Micronauts #1 foil facsimile. Can you do the rest of them? At least the rest of the golden stuff? That would be amazing. Come on, Marvel. Let's jump over to DC. We got Batman Superman World's Finest issue number 24, bringing to a conclusion this prequel of sorts to Kingdom Come. Boy Thunder, turns out he's Gog from the Kingdom Come, or Magog from the Kingdom, or Gog, it's Magog. Magog from the Kingdom Come universe, and this has been a really great book. Mark Waid has just been killing it on the pages of World's Finest, aided extraordinarily well by Dan Mora and Tamara Bonvillain as the art team. The artwork is big, it's explosive, Darkseid is involved. This is Superman and Batman in the Kingdom Come world. It's a little bit of a prequel, and it's just all in all super awesome. And I tell you what, Dan Mora drawing Darkseid, any day, you got every last dollar I got if that's what you want to deliver. Batman 144 is the third part of Joker Year 1. I'm just not vibing with it too much. It's alright, it's interesting. It is documenting that first year of Joker. He's Chip Zdarsky, the writer's trying to structure it and narrate it a little bit, kind of to make it feel like Batman Year 1, but it's not quite clicking on those cylinders either. It's got some cool ideas, it's got some interesting things, but at the same time, it's just not quite working for me. It's not really fully connecting, and it almost feels like a story that's not really needed. That being said, the Andrea Sorrentino bits in here for the art are, they are awesome. They are so gnarly, creepy, and cool. Wonder Woman #6 is here. This brings to a conclusion this Outlaw arc. Then there's going to be like a fill-in story by Tom King or something, and then it's going to continue. But I tell you what, for a book that I didn't really like that much at first, I'm really coming around on Tom King's Wonder Woman. I liked issue #6. Issue #5 saw the forming of a sorts of like a Wonder Woman revenge squad. In this one, they make their move. They go after Wonder Woman. It's got a lot of narration. It kind of gets overwrought at times, but you know what? I guess I'm just a little bit more forgiving of it this week, and I did enjoy this issue of Wonder Woman. So I thought it was cool how Diana responded to the threats and the Force, and even though there are some moments that don't quite line up perfectly well, I think all in all, it was a great issue of Wonder Woman. Superman #11. Josh Williamson knows Superman, and he knows the Superman that I like. And he definitely read and respects and loves the same runs that I do. Because you got a lot of references to some of the Byrne stuff. You got references to stuff throughout the 90s. But most importantly, that Jeff Loeb, Joe Kelly, eventually Joe Casey, that era of Superman, President Lex, Brainiac, Y2K, tons of references to that here. You got the vibe of the animated series from the 90s throughout here as well, and everything that Williamson and company have been building up to since issue #1 of this book, it's all coming to a head in a pitch perfect way. Superman is in great hands right now across the board. Then we got Nightwing 111. We just got the announcement of Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo bringing an end to their famous Nightwing run. This is definitely going to go down as one of those milestone watershed moments for Nightwing in particular. And so what we got to do now is kind of get us to that final bit. So this Heartless story that we've been building up to since the beginning of their run, it's time to ramp that back up. It appears as if there are Heartless killings now in Gotham, so Nightwing has to team up with Batman to help solve the case. Bruno Redondo did not do the artwork, but the artwork is really nice. I love the coloring, really great use of the different kind of colors and shades. This is Sami Basri. Really solid stuff on Nightwing as usual. Titans is here with issue #8, and after the shocking conclusion of Titans Beast World, we're now picking up those threads in the pages of Titans. I don't want to quite spoil it yet for people that are still trying to catch up on something like Beast World, but there was a big shift in one of the Titans, and they're starting to deal with the ramifications of that, and also the ramifications of how the Titans are now viewed by the public, which is not in a good light, all courtesy of Amanda Waller manipulating things to make her look good and them look bad. It's kind of like Norman Osborn in the Dark Reign era, but Titans number 8 was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. Green Lantern War Journal. Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing a great job here, playing with some ideas, fleshing things out. Most people come into Green Lantern now, they feel like they got to come up with a new ring core color or something like that. But Philip Kennedy Johnson's taking it a step further, and he's reimagining how the power of the Green Lantern ring works, how the power of the emotional spectrum works, and he's doing it all while really building on the legacy of the character of John Stewart, honoring what's come before and doing something very different with it. And I think it's really helping John Stewart stand out amongst a bunch of other Earth-based lanterns. Now that there are so many Earth-based lanterns, it's hard to find a good Green Lantern thread, but here we got that thread. It's John Stewart. He levels up a little bit here, and it's really awesome. The artwork was solid as well. Then we've got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, issue number 5. This book is way better than it deserves to be. This book could easily just be something phoned in, something cheesy, something stupid, and for the most part it kind of is, but it's my kind of cheesy, it's my kind of stupid, it's my kind of jam. All the characters are acting in character. The monsters from the Monsterverse are acting monstery and in their monster characters. You got lots of interesting things, and I love how this is kind of got a big, wide scope. There's very little Kong in this run so far. That's the one thing that I would kind of knock it down for. But seeing Godzilla and a Kraken have a fight when Atlantis is being threatened below it, and Aquaman and Wonder Woman are trying to save the day, that's just really great superhero fanboy type stuff. And they're doing it well in the pages of that book. Then we got John Constantine Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue number 2. I'm so excited that Cy Spurrier has gotten the opportunity, along with artist Aaron Campbell, to come back and revisit their Hellblazer run. They're picking right up from where they left off. And this is truly not the DCU John Constantine, which I think is a little too soft and just not really quite my cup of tea. No pun intended there. But this is classic Vertigo Sandman. We're talking Alan Moore, Jamie Delano, Garth Ennis, Paul Jenkins, Warren Ellis, Brian Azzarello, Mike Carey. That Constantine, a continuation of his story in the capable hands of Simon Spurrier, and amazing artwork. Dark, gritty, gnarly, horrific artwork from Aaron Campbell. Absolutely rocking that. Let's jump over to Image. And from Image, we have The Six Fingers, issue number 1. This is from Dan Waters and Sumit Kumar on the artwork. What a freaking great issue. All right, this is a fantastic comic book, and let me tell you what it is in case you don't know. So if you remember the book that came out a few weeks ago, The One Hand by Ram V. It's a futuristic detective story where this dude is about to retire, this detective, and a case that he thought he had long since solved rears its ugly head back in, and now everything's in question, including his legacy. So that was a really solid book that leaned into like the detective noirish tropes, but did something unique with it and interesting. Now, what's even more interesting is this book, The Six Fingers, is a companion book to that. They both work on their own. You could read just one if you really wanted to, but I encourage you to read both because they kind of play with each other a little bit. And even like the cover B of The One Hand number 1 connects to cover A of Six Fingers number 1. And they're going to keep doing that, alternating the covers and stuff. Brilliant idea to sell variant covers for sure, but a striking cover as well. I'm going to give this the cover of the week. I loved this book. So if The One Hand is this story from the perspective of the detective, The Six Fingers is the same story from the perspective of the killer. Has a completely different tone, firmly set in that world, firmly set within that story. Interesting little connections to The One Hand that we've already read, but it has its own vibe. It has its own purpose. It has its own structure. It has its own flow. And I love it for that. It's not essential to read both of them. You can enjoy either of them on their own, but you got to read both of them because it's so well put together. And Dan Waters, his use of language, he's just so amazing at it. And Kumar's artwork really works here, and so does the coloring. This does a little bit of it's building another side of that world. We see a different side in The One Hand, and in this one we're seeing a dirtier, seedier side of this reality, and I really, really dig that. So The Six Fingers, that was almost the pick of the week. That's a fantastic book. So is this one, Cobra Commander, issue number 2. Cobra Commander is loose on Earth, having been sent by Cobra Law to find this mysterious transformative source of energy that we know is going to be Energon. He's hunting it down, leads him to the swamps of Louisiana, where he comes up against the Dreadnoks. So the Dreadnoks are being introduced here. The Thunder Machine is in here. And let me tell you something. It is just absolutely glorious. And this book is not afraid to get bloody, to get visceral, to get mean. This book rocks. It is definitely a different vibe from the Duke book, but it's in that same world. I would highly encourage you to check these books out. The Energon stuff is killing it. Transformers, Void Rivals, Duke, and Cobra Commander, they all have different kind of vibes to them, but they all do make one connective whole, which is the Energon universe. But this is your gnarly, straight up, twisted, limbs flying, gator eating horror right here. Cobra Commander, and he's no longer a coward. He's badass. Oh, I love that book. Then we got Spawn 350 here, the big 350th issue of Spawn, where we definitively get the answer as to who is going to sit on the throne of hell. This is just a big action issue where you got Clown, Sin, and Al Simmons all fighting for the throne of hell. But who sits on it? How does it change things? All of that is revealed here. $4.99, but it's extra sized. And you got Brett Booth coming in as the new ongoing Spawn artist. You also got Carlo Barberi doing the back. But Brett Booth, he's been killing it on Gunslinger Spawn. Now him and Barberi are going to be switching books. So Barberi's going on to Gunslinger. Though I do love what Dexter Soy's been doing right now. But man, oh man, Brett Booth on Spawn, this is some of the best work I've seen from him. And I really do like the revelation of how this all winds up and how it affects and changes things. And it's got me excited for Spawn books again, 100%. Then we got the Bone Orchard Mythos Tenement number 9. Another pick of the week contender, Andrea Sorrentino, just really stretching with his artwork here, really doing some neat things with technique and texture and layouts and compositions. We're used to that, but he's doing something a little bit different. We start getting the true origins of the Bone Orchard Mythos. We've already had a lot of revelations in this book. They're giving us more. They're taking us all the way back to the biblical days to tell us the start of this evil that's infesting the world of the Bone Orchard Mythos. And then after that, they take us right back to those characters, where they're at, build up that tension, and man, I am ready for the exciting conclusion of Tenement. This has been one of the best books on shelves, and if you're not reading it, shame on you. Firepower is here with issue number 30. This is the final issue of Firepower, and I'll say with this. First of all, it's a huge issue, it's big, and it's a lot of action, lots of cool stuff, lots of interesting explorations with the Firepower itself, but honestly, I do feel like the ending of this whole saga just a bit too truncated. I almost feel like Robert Kirkman was like, man, Energon Universe is catching on. Let's put all of our focus in on that. And I feel like Firepower deserved to go a little bit longer. I feel like this third act needed to kind of have more room to breathe, more reason to play with these ideas. Because when things happen to necessitate the purpose of moving the story along, it feels like a lot of it just happens suddenly in these last few issues. And it's just kind of a rapid, quick run and dash to the finish, and it's a satisfying conclusion, but I just wish it could have been paced out a little bit more, I don't know, that seemed like if you look at the all of Firepower, third act was a little rushed feeling, but this has been a great book. It's been one of the best books out there, and it's one of my favorite Robert Kirkman books I've ever read. Savage Dragon 268. This book is wild. This book is wild, y'all. Savage Dragon is off the rails. Wild. First of all, Eric Larson doing the most frantic, dashed out artwork I've ever seen him do, and I'm kind of vibing with it. The story, he's not scared to do things that are taboo or to do things that may be pushing the envelope a little bit too far. There's scene in here where even I was like, well, damn, Eric, okay. It's pretty out there. It's pretty wild. Savage Dragon is savage. It's nuts. And here's another really cool thing about this one. You have an appearance from Mickey Mouse, because now that the copyright for Steamboat Willie is done, oh, that's the page. I cannot show you that page. So now that the copyright of Steamboat Willie's done, Mickey Mouse shows up, meets Malcolm, and that was a really fun interaction. Worth the price of admission alone. Savage Dragon. Then we got the Holy Roller issue number 4. The Andy Sandberg, Rick Remender, Joe Truman, Roland Boschke, and Maurino Denisio book that I love. I love this so much. It's basically Andy Sandberg's Andy Samberg as a superhero, right? But he's got a bowling ball and he's got some like athletic ability, and he's Jewish, and he's been like picked on and bullied because he's Jewish as a kid, and now in his hometown there's like a lot of hate going on and racism and neo-Nazism and stuff like that. So he's decided to become a vigilante called the Holy Roller and just starts tearing the ass out of bigots and racists with these crazy trick bowling balls. Lots of great laughs in here, lots of great action, a great pace and flow. The artwork's great. I've been really impressed with the Holy Roller. Midlife issue number 5 is here, and I'm starting to not enjoy this book quite as much as I was. I do love the utilization of the characters. I like the pop culture references, but I find myself kind of not caring as much. The artwork at times just gets a bit... I don't know, the artwork's still good, the story's good, I like the characters, I like the dialogue, I'm enjoying it, but I'm not enjoying it as much as I was, or as much as I am other things. So Midlife to me is starting to trend a little downwards for me. From Distillery, we got the debut of Mirka Andolfo's Blasphemous. I really liked Mirka Andolfo's Sweet Paprika, so I was excited to check this out, and I just couldn't get into it. It felt really long. It felt like a chore to get through. It's about this woman. She's made some kind of deal with the devil or a demon or something, and now 600 years later, she is like this religious music figure or something like that. Like, I think Taylor Swift, but like a Christian artist, and tied into so many other things, but then there's a flip side to it. I don't know. I just couldn't really quite fully get into it. The artwork was nice. It's got a certain kind of cute charm to it, but overall it just didn't really do too much for me. Then we got Cemetery Kids Don't Die, issue number 1 from Oni Press. This is written by Zach Thompson with artwork by Daniel Irizarry. I liked the artwork. I kind of liked the story. It's all right. It's about this world where these kids, they go to sleep, but they put on this like video game, like a VR visor, and while they're dreaming, they're in this reality, like basically playing Warcraft or Diablo or something like that. They're playing a game while they're sleeping, but then that game starts getting way too real and way too serious. So it's a story idea that we've seen before and probably done better. And this one, like I said, it worked. It was all right, but it just didn't have that wow factor to really want to pull me back for the next issue. From Boom Studios, we get an Ashcan Man's Best. This is a new book from Pornsak Pichashot and Jesse Lonergan. Got to meet Jesse Lonergan last year at Heroes Con. Super cool dude. Love his artwork. This has kind of got some We 3 vibes or something. Humanity is on the way to try to find a new home because we've destroyed the planet. And this woman has these 3 animals, 2 dogs and 1 cat, and it's up to them to go and explore this reality and try to find a home for us or whatever. The art was good. There wasn't too much in the story to pull me in on this Ashcan, but this isn't the full proper issue number 1. This is just something to give us a taste, to get us excited, and I'm a little excited. Then we got Animal Pound issue number 2. I was really annoyed with the Ashcan on this one. Really didn't like issue number 1. I did like issue number 2. Why am I going soft on Tom King right now? Is it because I met him? Is it because I met him? No, I don't think it is. I liked this issue, though. Basically, the animals have freed themselves. They run the pound, and there are dogs, and there are cats, and there are bunnies. And this is the issue where they're trying to form their policies, their rules, their laws, their government. And seeing that form from the perspective of these animals, it's kind of cute, and it's kind of touching, and it's kind of funny. And I liked it. I did. I liked it. It is overly verbose, but the flow of the book wasn't affected by it. It was really good. I liked Animal Pound number 2. I can admit that. Then we got Lotus Land issue number 4. Darcy Van Polgees is doing this kind of futuristic neo-noir type thing. It's hard for me when I'm reading these issues, issue to issue, to really connect with the story or to kind of remember all the nuances of everything. But then I went back and reread 1, 2, and 3. I loved them even more. And now I'm reading 4, and I'm like, I feel a little bit more connected to it. But I do feel like this is definitely going to be something that reads better in a trade paperback form because there's just certain nuances that I'm finding difficulty connecting with. And it's probably because of my memory and how much I read, but definitely something that when I read it as a big chunk, I appreciated it even more. Then we get Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. Dynamite's Elvira books have been some of my favorite books that Dynamite has been doing for years, if forever, actually. The character of Elvira is so true to themselves and so true to the fans. Like, if you're a fan of Elvira, you got to check this out. The ghost of H.P. Lovecraft shows up and says, Elvira, I need your help. You got to come with me to stop the elder gods and the old ones and all this kind of stuff. So it's Lovecraftian, it's quirky, it's fun, it's poking fun at itself, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's Elvira. It's exactly what it needs to be. If you're a fan of Elvira, you should be reading that book because that's fantastic stuff. Army of Darkness Forever, issue number 5 is here. Tony Fleece is doing a great job for the 30th anniversary of the film Army of Darkness with giving something awesome for fans of the property. Army of Darkness Forever is my favorite Army of Darkness book that Dynamite's been doing so far, and it takes place as a sequel of sorts to Army of Darkness. The original ending, where Ash sleeps too long, wakes up in 2093 in a post-apocalyptic world run by futuristic Deadites. We got the continuation of that story in here. We also got the continuation of the story when he pops back up in 1993 at the S-Mart. We also got the continuation of the story of what happens in medieval times after he leaves. 3 stories going on, all starting to wrap around each other and doing a solid job keeping it all together. Army of Darkness Forever. Then we got James Bond 007, issue number 2 from Garth Ennis. Found myself a bit disconnected from this. There were some awesome moments of violence, some great action scenes, but I found myself having difficulty remembering what the mission was or what was going on in issue number 1. So this might be something that I might have to just kind of trade weight if I'm not going to be able to keep up with it and if I continuously lose the plot. But once again, that's not knocking the book, just knocking me. I read a lot, so there you go. All right, then we got the final issue of Ronin, Book 2 from Frank Miller. Frank Miller does the artwork here. Daniel Enriquez does the finishing and the tones on it. And I'll tell you what, I like this. It gets the smell of the week, by the way. Oh, the smell on these Frank Miller Presents books are amazing. Frank Miller Presents, though, it's been an interesting experiment. I don't think this experiment has worked out so well. I am a huge Miller fan. I'm a fan of Ronin, Book 1. Book 2, I'm so lost. I'm so confused. I read this and I was like, okay, that really feels like that should have been like a one-shot that was spread out over 6 issues because of the double-page spreads. I've loved the art throughout this book. I know not a lot of people do, but I love even modern Frank Miller. Like, I love it sometimes when an artist gets to the age where they just don't give an F anymore and they're just mad dashing it out. Like Eric Larson on Savage Dragon this week, right? But there is skill to this, but as far as the story goes, man, I'm major confused. I need to sit down, reread Ronin, and then reread this all together, and then I can report back and let you know if it makes any kind of cohesive sense narratively. All right, then we got Zorro, Man of the Dead, issue number 2, Sean Gordon Murphy, doing a great job of reinvigorating Zorro for a modern audience. This is a dude, I thought that this book was going to be just straight up Zorro, and it is, but it's about this dude who, like, thinks he's Zorro, or he's emboldened with the spirit of Zorro against, like, drug cartels and all this kind of stuff. Great action, great artwork. Everything you love about Sean Murphy's artwork and storytelling, it's all prevalent here in the pages of Zorro, and nice homages to the Zorro fictions of the past. Skeeters, I almost said Zeters. Skeeters is here, issue number 3. Kelly is doing amazing work here. Kelly Williams is the artist. Great watercolors, great gnarly stuff. This is a book, is very much a B horror movie type thing. It is a book about these mosquitoes, giant mosquitoes that impregnate people and then they become giant mosquitoes, and it's crazy. And like, if you like stuff like Slither, if you like stuff like Tremors, if you like all those cheesy B movies from back in the day, you definitely need to get into Skeeters, my bad. All right, some trade paperbacks. We got Blade, Volume 1, Mother of Evil. Brian Hill's been doing a great job in the pages of Blade, and I want to look. Do they pump up the coloring levels on the first few issues? My problem with this book was at the beginning, I thought the colors were not quite there. They do get pumped up a little bit, it seems like here, but this is it. So if you missed out on the Brian Hill Blade series that you're hearing everybody talk about, here's where you can get 1 through 5 in a collected edition, $17.99. But the big release this week, trade paperback-wise, is Void Rivals, Volume 1, More Than Meets the Eye. This is the start of the Energon universe. If you missed out on Void Rivals, if you're just jumping into Transformers and the Joe stuff, you want to see the other side of it, check out Void Rivals. I have since reread all 6 of these issues, and man, as a whole, it works. So if you're liking Transformers, you're liking the Joe, you're liking the Energon stuff, and you haven't read Void Rivals yet, definitely get on board, because this is some really cool stuff, and they're building something truly significant over at the Energon universe. So some 2 trade paperbacks out, Void Rivals and Blade #1. But let's recap. Skeeters is great if you love creature feature B movies. Zorro, Man of the Dead. If you like Sean Murphy, you're going to like that book. Ronin book 2. Not sure if that makes a lick of sense, but I'll find out later. James Bond, I'm feeling a little bit disconnected. Might have to trade weight that. Army of Darkness Forever is doing a great job, especially coming from this Army of Darkness fan. Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. 2 things I really like, so let's check it out. Lotus Land is definitely a trade weight, but I'm enjoying it still nonetheless. Animal Pound, I really liked it this week. Man's Best shows a lot of promise. Then we got Cemetery Kids Don't Die, just didn't quite work for me. Blasphemous definitely did not work for me. Midlife starting to wane on me a little bit. The Holy Roller, though, I'm still enjoying the hell out of that. Savage Dragon is wild. That book is wild. Firepower, a little bit of a rushed ending. Slightly disappointed in it. Tenement, though, wow. Wow. That's all I can say. Spawn 350. Who sits on the throne of hell? How will it change Spawn's universe forever? Find out there. I really love that Brett Booth artwork. Cobra Commander is slaying it, literally. The Six Fingers, a great companion to the One Hand. You don't need to read both, but you should be reading both. That's the cover of the week. Hellblazer Dead in America, Vertigo, Hellblazer, John Constantine at his best. Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong is cheesy goodness. Green Lantern War Journal, building that character, interesting ideas. Titans and Nightwing, 2 really solid Tom Taylor books, continuing and building up to something. Superman, Josh Williamson understands this character, understands the mythology, and he's making it work. Wonder Woman #6, this book's starting to really tighten up on me. Batman, though, not really digging this Batman year or Joker Year 1 story, but Batman Superman World's Finest, oh my goodness, issue 24 rocked. I love the facsimile of Amazing Spider-Man 253. We got 254 on the way. Predator Last Hunt actually surprised me. I enjoyed it. Alien, Black, White, and Blood had some cool artwork, but the stories were just okay. Incredible Hulk only works for me when Nick Klein is on it. Daredevil, that was a really solid issue of Daredevil. Spider-Boy continues to be fun. Edge of Spider-Verse wasn't too bad, but still it's kind of obnoxious that that's a thing. Gods by Hickman's doesn't feel as big as it's supposed to, but it's still a well-done book. But Ultimate Spider-Man #2, bringing excitement, bringing enthusiasm, bringing really good character work and story back into the Spider-Man comics. Great artwork too. Really, really solid stuff. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. That's what I dug. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!